Happy Thursday, everybody. My name is Steve, and welcome to Rank the World, the podcast where a young white guy shares what he thinks about a variety of topics in a tier list format, because that's exactly what the world needed more of. Now, for those of you listening at home for the first time, this is what I like to call a homemade podcast, meaning I'm not recording in a full studio like a lot of professionals do. I do use a nice XLR microphone with an audio interface, but that's just about where the list of professional equipment ends. I'm going to do my best to minimize any background noise that happens here, but you know what? If a car comes flying in through my apartment, or a plane says hello, or if my neighbors start jumping up and down while I'm in the middle of talking, I'm not going to start the whole thing over. Sound like a deal? Okay. And one last thing before we begin. If you enjoy this podcast and want to see more of what I make, go check out my links at allmylinks.com/DareHairSturm. That's DERHERRSTURM. That's got links to my Twitch, my YouTube channels, my merch store over at Redbubble, and my Twitter, where you can stay up to date with what I'm doing and when I'm doing it. None of this is really the same sort of content as what you can listen to here, but who knows? You may find a thing or two worth enjoying. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get started with today's topic. Now, originally I had planned on covering this topic last week, but, as the expression goes, life hit me like a bus, and we did not have an episode last week. So instead, I'm just going to push that topic to today, which is going to be covering holidays, because as most of you may have known already with the advent of the Shamrock Shake, last weekend was St. Patrick's Day, so I figured, what the heck, we might as well cover them all while we're at it. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know the drill by now. It's a standard tier list, S to F tier, S being the best, and F being the worst. First holiday we have up on the chopping block here today is Valentine's Day. Now, to its credit, it is nice to have like a designated time to really commemorate any relationships you have, really appreciating whatever partner you may have at that point in time. But let's be honest, this is a Hallmark holiday that was invented to sell cards. Not even to mention the stuff that does normally happen on Valentine's Day, like, appreciating your partner, who they mean to you, showing that you really care for them. That's something you should have been doing already. I mean, sure, it's nice every now and then to have like a real reason to go the extra mile, but having a holiday named after a Roman saint should not be your excuse to do that. You should just do that because, you want to do that, and it's a good thing to do. So for all those reasons, Valentine's Day is a C-tier holiday. Next, we have Thanksgiving. Now, if we just take a look at what a lot of people do on Thanksgiving, have a great big feast, share time with family, just those two things on paper, it's a good time, it's a fun time. But unfortunately, the historical context for this holiday and what ends up happening for a lot of families all over the country on this holiday really do drag it down a lot. Me personally, I have a lot of really good memories about this holiday. It was one of the very few excuses I got to have to really connect with my family, break bread with them, have a wonderful home-cooked meal. But it's important to recognize that not everybody shares that kind of Thanksgiving experience. For a lot of people, it is poisoned by toxic conversations with family members you don't see eye to eye with, a lot of tension. Not even to mention, it celebrates how the Pilgrims came across the Atlantic Ocean and then caused the genocide of the Native American people. So I think, all things considered, I can't in good conscience put Thanksgiving any higher than C tier. Next, we have Black Friday. I blame Black Friday for how the Christmas season has invaded more and more of the rest of the year. Albeit to its credit, You get some pretty good economic opportunities with Black Friday. A lot of good deals on stuff you may not necessarily have bought otherwise, but it is yet another holiday that celebrates consumerism at a massive level. And other than that, doesn't really mean or stand for anything or represent anything really. The only real memory I have that's worth a damn around this holiday is that one time I made the mistake of going to Best Buy on Black Friday. I then made the mistake of being the video game enjoyer I am, perusing over to the video game section of the Best Buy. I almost drowned in a sea of children let loose by their parents during shopping. It was the most packed I have ever seen a store be. And that's not even to mention how hectic this holiday has been in the past. People getting trampled in crowds. Really one of the more dangerous holidays to be had. So I think all things considered, Black Friday is a C-tier holiday. Next we have Cinco de Mayo, which, to my understanding, which may be incorrect, is Mexico's equivalent to Independence Day. The day that they celebrate their victory over the French Empire. I think it's a really good opportunity for people of Latinx heritage to celebrate that culture and heritage. And although I do think it gets misappropriated a little bit by media corporations here in America, if there are any overall negative connotations or historical contexts for this holiday, like for Thanksgiving, I am not aware of them. So as it stands right now, I would say Cinco de Mayo is an A-tier holiday. Next, we have Columbus Day, the day that the nation honors one of the most integral members that led to the Native American genocide by having a day off of work and school. I don't like Christopher Columbus. I don't think he should be held nearly as high in regard as a lot of people in the country hold him in. I am glad to see a lot of people are moving away from honoring Columbus on this day, and I hope that movement goes further. So all things considered, Columbus Day will be our first F-tier holiday of the day. Next, we have Easter, the day that Christian people celebrate the resurrection of their Savior by hiding colorful eggs filled with candy and telling the children, "Ooh, a big rabbit hid them. We have to go find them." Albeit, as someone who was raised in a Christian household, I personally have some good memories with the holiday, engaging in that hunt for the colorful eggs, and having attended a non-zero amount of Easter services. I understand the feeling of community that the Christian community can feel on that holiday. But like Valentine's Day, it very much feels like a corporatized holiday used to sell candy and cards. So I think all things considered, it is a B-tier holiday. Next, we have Father's Day. A lot of the thoughts I have about Father's Day can also be applied to Mother's Day, so I'm going to cover both. Kill two stones with one bird while I'm at it. Yes, that's what I meant to say. I think, although there are a lot of people all over the world who do the job incorrectly, and it's important to recognize that a lot of parents end up damaging their children, either physically or psychologically, and that is not at all okay. Even if it was by mistake or unintentional, it's not a good thing to do, whether you meant to or not. By and large, I think the job of being a father or a mother or just a parent at all doesn't end up going with the thanks that it deserves. Because it's not an easy job, and a lot of people who go into that job don't really know whether or not what they're doing is the right thing. There's a lot of confusion, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress that goes with the job. So, although it's just a single day out of the year, the fact that there's a day at all to sort of give thanks to your parents for, although a lot of people don't, doing their best. So I think all things considered, both Father's and Mother's Day are A-tier holidays. Although again, another corporatized holiday invented to sell cards. Next, we have Hanukkah, which, if memory serves correctly, is the longest lasting holiday we are going to be talking about today, lasting a total of 8 days and 8 nights. From what I know about it, the Jewish people do have a long, extensive, and arduous history in the world, and this is one of the 2 that I can think of right now, holidays where the Jewish people can honor that history and heritage. The other one coming to mind being Passover. But unfortunately, that is not listed for the holidays we are going to be covering today. Unfortunately, a bit of its reverence does get not necessarily detracted, but a lot of the attention it could get otherwise gets shifted over because of how big Christmas is, at least in American culture. But other than that, it's a solid holiday, has a nice runtime, and has some nice traditions and practices that go along with it. So all things considered, I would say Hanukkah is an A-tier holiday. Next, we have Halloween, which out of all the ones we're going to be talking about today is my personal favorite. I am a sucker for dressing up in awesome costumes and pretending to be awesome characters. And Halloween is the perfect, most universal excuse to do exactly that. Not to mention all of the candy that you can shovel into your mouth without having to feel too guilty about it. Again, a little bit like Easter, heavily corporatized to sell candy, not really cards, but also costumes. And also, although it did originate as a Protestant Christian holiday, as All Hallows Eve, I think it has since then been repurposed into a really fun holiday. I think that's the best word for it. It's just plain fun. So I think all things considered, Halloween is an S-tier holiday. Next, we have Christmas, which at the very least from an aesthetical standpoint is also one of my favorites. One of the coziest, because I can't think of a better adjective than cozy, aesthetics I can think of are just like sitting in like a dark room that's just illuminated by lights on the Christmas tree, enjoying yourself a nice hot mug of hot cocoa. And not only just the act of receiving gifts, but an aspect of it I've found myself especially appreciating as of late, as an adult. Being a part of the joy of gift giving. It's hard to describe the feeling that you get when you put thought and effort into either searching for and buying or making a gift for someone, whether it be a family member or a friend, and seeing them recognize and appreciate that thought you put into all of that. There are few things that I've encountered in my life that are more personally fulfilling. Again, like Thanksgiving, it's one of the few excuses I've had to be able to connect with and interact with my wider family. And I think at the same time, it's important to recognize that Christmas is not like that for everybody. Christmas can be a very stressful time, a time filled with a lot of negative feelings, much like Thanksgiving. It very largely depends on how you spend it and who you spend it with, as well as your financial status. Although it has most definitely fallen victim to the corporatization of a lot of other holidays, probably the most out of any other we're going to talk about today, I think if you look past all of that, at its core, it has what I think to be a very important principle, the principle of generosity towards others, whether it be someone you know or a complete stranger. So I think all things considered, Christmas, although it's not my favorite or by any means a perfect holiday, I'm going to be placing it into S tier. Next, we have New Year's. New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, that whole thing of the end of one year and the start of another. I see this holiday as more of a symbol than anything else, than anything practical or anything that has any values attached to it or any real fun behind it. Me personally, I tend to associate this holiday with a really difficult part of my life, right shortly before the COVID pandemic started. That was a really rough portion of my life. It really tested my character as a person. And although I am very thankful for the struggles that I went through in that period of time in my life, I think just because of where it really cruxed being around New Year's, I don't think I'll ever be able to see New Year's in the same sort of light. So I think all things considered, New Year's is a D tier holiday. Next, we have St. Patrick's Day, the day where people in America celebrate a Christian saint's supposed act of driving all the snakes out of Ireland by drinking and wearing green. Now, while I really like the color green, I think it is a very silly way to celebrate a story like that. A story that, if memory serves correct, which I may be wrong on this, it's entirely possible I'm incorrect on this, was a very hyperbolized story. But then again, it's just plain fun. So all things considered, I would say St. Patrick's Day is a B tier holiday. Next, we have Labor Day, the day where we celebrate and honor all of the workers that keep our society turning by giving them a day off and then making them come back to work the next day with the same awful conditions and the same subpar pay and the same status quo treatment. It's nice that they get a day where we tip our hat off to them. I don't think it is nearly the gesture that the workers of the world really deserve. So I think all things considered, Labor Day is a C tier holiday. Next, we have the 4th of July, the day of summer that dogs and animals and people with PTSD and anxiety dread all year long. The day where we celebrate our independence from the biggest empire of the world at the time to later become an even bigger empire. And how do we celebrate this momentous achievement? By sending colorful rockets in the air and blowing them up. To its credit, much like Thanksgiving and Christmas, for me personally, it was yet another excuse to visit and connect with my family. But other than that, I don't much care for it. So all things considered, 4th of July, a D tier holiday. Next, we have what I believe to be the most recent addition to this list of holidays, at least recognized at a fairly widespread level. We have Juneteenth, a day that celebrates the emancipation of the enslaved African Americans in our history. And when I say most recent, I mean in terms of being recognized at a federal level. I believe that was fairly recent with Joe Biden doing that in his presidency that we are currently in. Although, similarly to Labor Day, I don't think it goes quite enough in terms of recognizing the severity and the reality of African American history. I think at the very least it's a step in the right direction, and I hope it ends up being one of many more steps that we take as an American culture. So I think all things considered, Juneteenth is a B tier holiday. Next, we have Veterans Day, the day where we honor all the people who have served this country in military service in the many, many wars that we've fought. And how do we celebrate and honor these people? Do we give them the health care that they need to deal with the after the fact effects of their service. No, we give everyone a day off of work and school sometimes. I I don't really think I can say anything about Veterans Day that I haven't said about Labor Day. And I think C tier is where Veterans Day goes. Next, we have Memorial Day, which is pretty much the same as Veterans Day, but instead it specifically looks at those who died in service to America in the military. I don't think I can say anything more that I haven't already said about Veterans Day or Labor Day. C tier. Next, we have Martin Luther King Jr. Day, a day honoring one of the most prominent civil rights activists in American history. Provides another really good opportunity to honor African American history and to recognize the struggles that African Americans, among many other groups, have gone through to receive the rights that they have today. A day to honor a man who, despite the peaceful methods that he used to spread his message and ideals, ended up a victim of assassination. Honestly, I can't say much more about this holiday that I haven't already said about Juneteenth. A step in the right direction, but we need to take more of those steps. Once again, a B tier holiday. Next, we have President's Day, a day where we honor presidents who are now dead for the wrong reasons to sell. Well, actually, no, not to sell cards, because you don't really send a President's Day card, but just to have a day off. And what are we celebrating specifically about presidents? Are we celebrating their achievements towards making the country and the world a better place? No, we're celebrating their birthdays. This is a D tier holiday. And then finally, we have, to me, the most puzzling entry on this list. We have the Super Bowl. We have Football Day. Full disclosure, I actually watched the Super Bowl this year, and I enjoyed it. I don't, however, think it quite deserves to be on a list of holidays. You don't see the World Series on this list, or the Olympics on this list, or any other organized sport on this list. You just have the Super Bowl. I don't care. I don't care about the Super Bowl. This is a D tier holiday. It shouldn't even be on the holiday list if you ask me. And to summarize, in F tier, we have Columbus Day. In D tier, we have New Year's, the 4th of July, President's Day, and the Super Bowl. In C tier, we have Valentine's Day, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Labor Day, Veterans Day, and Memorial Day. In B tier, we have Easter, St. Patrick's Day, Juneteenth, and Martin Luther King Jr. Day. In A tier, we have Cinco de Mayo, Father's Day, Mother's Day, and Hanukkah. And in S tier, we have Halloween and Christmas. And that's about it for this episode. Much shorter episode this week, but nonetheless, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed, feel free to follow the podcast on your platform of choice, including Spotify, YouTube, Pocket Casts, and Anchor. I'll be back next week with another new topic, but until then, you all have yourselves a damn good one.